Okay, so good morning. Let me just talk to you briefly about this project you have to do. So the first step you want to do is to choose an international city. I chose my international city and I chose Reykjavik, Iceland. So what I did is I put in my search bar length of day for Reykjavik. And what came up was this time and date, sunrise and sunset in Reykjavik. And it was a really good resource, and I actually linked it to your data stuff. So what happened is I saw this and it had a table here, and the beautiful part about it is it told me the length of each daylight, the length of daylight for each day starting with January 1st. So what I did then is I took notes and I made a list of dates. So I put the date on the outside. I put the day number of the year on the outside, and I started with January 1st, and I just added 7. Then I used my calendar, and I did January 1st, January 8th, January 15th, January 22nd, January 29th, and then when I got to February, I used my calendar. And basically, I used 52 data points. So I took those 2 data points, and you can see once I had my day number, my time number, and the length of time, I then converted that into all minutes. So that's what gave me my data set. Then once I had that done, so what I also did was, you'll notice it also says to give you the latitude and longitude. So that's not part of this data. So I just did latitude and longitude coordinates for that, and I typed that in, and those are the ones I used. Okay? So once I had that all done, and that is what took the longest, was writing those data points down, truthfully, and graphing it. So once I had that done, I went and I made my graph. So this was my graph. Okay, and I had to tape 2 sheets of graph paper together to get all 365 days on there. I went from 0 to 1300 minutes because my longest day of daylight was on the 169th day of the year, and I had 1267 minutes. So right there is my max. And since I knew that was the maximum, I used cosine to write my equation. You can choose whichever equation you want. I just chose cosine. Okay? Easy enough. And so there's my data set, and there it is graphed. So that's the first part. Okay, so if you go back and you look at what they're asking us about here, you record your daylight, so that was 10 points. Then I make a scatter plot, that's 10 points. So bam, right there, I've got my data and I've got my scatter plot, 20 points. Then I answer these questions. So where do I answer those questions? Well, I answered those questions on a separate sheet of paper. So here's my Reykjavik. You can see I got my data at timeanddate.com. I did number 3, I've got it graphed. Everybody's period is going to be 365 days. The period for everyone is going to be 365 days. We're doing this for a year. Everybody's period is going to be the same. Your shortest daylight's going to be not the same. Your longest daylight's not going to be the same. So since I knew what the max is, I'm going to use my cosine equation. Then I just converted this into these equations, and I wrote my equation. That's it. And then, of course, I went to Desmos, because you know how I feel about Desmos, right? I went to Desmos, and I typed in my equation to see if, in fact, it gave me I forgot what my vertical shift was. 757.5. And then I made my window work. So my x-axis, I need to go to 365 because that's how many days there are. And for my y-axis, I need to go up to 1300. And is this what my graph looked like? Yeah. And so then I could answer questions about it, but then all you have left to do is to go and research your international city. So the only one you can't do is Reykjavik Island, Iceland. I hope this was helpful.